Shalom everyone, and we are in class number 9, the Tree of Life in Kabbalah level 1. And the concept, the Tree of Life, is one of the most famous concepts connected to the language of the study of Kabbalah. And it is a very important part of the consciousness that Kabbalah, or learning Kabbalah, or living Kabbalah is about. So that is the main thing we're going to study today. First of all, just a summary of the previous classes. We learned till now about 6 rules. Rule number 1 was that everything we desire is the light. Rule number 2 was about what is real is not logical and what is logical is not real, which means you can't find the light just in the logic state of mind, in the thinking of the 5 senses, okay? And that brought us to understanding the world is divided into what we see with the 5 senses, perceive and understand, which is fake, because it's really, the world is not really structured this way. And there's the true world, the spiritual world, and we are basically confined, limited in the limited world of illusion, the physical world, and whatever most human beings are thinking is reality, it's not reality. We are locked, imprisoned in a fake reality, but this fake reality is a shadow of the true reality, and we're learning the language of branches in order to release ourselves from the confinement of the physical elusive reality. So then we came, that was rule number 2. Rule number 3 was about that there is a condition. You want to achieve lasting fulfillment, you need to be in a creator's consciousness, which means you have to create your fulfillment. It's not enough just to connect to the light. You have to connect to the light in a creator's consciousness, which means you have to take responsibility. You have to be proactive about it. And how to do it, that's rule number 4, which is the creator formula. How do we create the light that is staying? You have to identify the automatic reaction, which is, on one hand, our obstacle, on the other hand, that's our gift. Then you have to stop or overcome the reaction, the immediate reaction. You have to stop, but remember, like a stop sign, it's not a parking spot, it's a stop, and immediately you have to choose the light and follow the light. When you are connected to the light, then act upon it, manifest the connection. Because the moment you did it, you just got out of the box. The moment you connect to the dimension of the light, you connected to the source of all answers, the wisdom of all that is truth. You connected to the true world, and you created it on your own. And you are creator in a creator consciousness. Therefore, whatever you're going to choose when you are in that state of mind of enlightenment and responsibility, being a creator of your own fulfillment, then you connected to the cloud, to the source of all wisdom, and then you can simply be spontaneous, and you will see the result will be proper. Rule number 5 spoke about, from rule number 5 and on, we are starting to work on what are the tools to achieve fitness, which means the ability to stop. We all know it's almost impossible to stop the reaction. That we are conditioned to do that, who knows how many lifetimes. To stop the reaction, overcome the reaction, becoming greater, more positive, more proactive, expand our consciousness, all of that stuff What are the tools? So rule number 5 is the first one that is giving us the most powerful tool, which means make yourself a teacher and buy a friend. And that's from the Ethics of the Fathers. A person needs an inspiring teacher and friends, and so on. And rule number 6 was about the Hebrew letters can transfer light to us and help us transform using the different ways of connecting to the light via the Hebrew letters. And now we're going to talk about the 7th rule, which is how do we connect to the light and how does that work? How do we basically tap into the network, the system, to the line of the spiritual light? So we'll start with a few questions. When we study any kind of spirituality, there's always, especially biblical study, there's a special problem with it's very hard to reconcile contradictions. Like on one hand, you read in the Bible about God's anger, about a punishing God, about a vengeful God. It's kind of annoying, let's say, upsetting for most people, because you don't expect the creator, as we learn about of monotheism, like an entity of endless power of love and giving that is never changing. How could we create God's anger? How can God be punishing? How can God be vengeful? And the Torah explains this is nothing to do with God. It's only to do with our perception of God. Perception of God, human perception of God, that is changing not just daily, hourly, could be changed by minute, by second. And so there's no change in the Creator, because on the other hand, we would prefer to connect to the love of God, to the endless mercy of God, to forgiving God. And that's confusing. And that brings also the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Or where was God when? All kinds of atrocities, injustices being done in front of our eyes daily. How do you reconcile them? So as I said before, when we read the book of Malachi, chapter 3:6, where it says, Ani ki ani Adonai lo shaniti. For I, the Lord, do not change. There's never change in the infinite. If we again speak about an infinite light, and God is the infinity, the moment there's a change in the infinity, it's not infinity anymore, because the old one stopped being, and now there's a new one, so it's finite. The moment something stopped, and that is impossible. There's no way it could happen. So there's no change in the Creator. So how is it that we humans feel one day that God loves us and one day that He doesn't like us? You know, who never experienced that stuff? You know, oh, thank you, God loves me, and now why are you upset about me? It's not God who loves me, upsets about me. He never changes. So why do we feel indifferent? In order to understand that, we must understand how the universe is wired. First of all, when we learn about power stations, electricity. Today, we cannot have civilization without electricity, okay? Electricity is basically the core of our civilization. Without electricity, there's no civilization, there's no life. Can you just imagine? You can't, you don't want to, okay? However, if this is the power station that generates the force, that without that force, we're simply incapable of dealing with life. Okay, can you imagine no electricity? No phones, no communication, no light, no heating, no cooling, no, even if your car is still old-fashioned, just on gas. The gas station cannot fuel your car because there's no electricity, okay? What about water? There's no water without electricity. It's all about water pumps. And so no hospitals, nothing, okay? So electricity is the source of our life, physical life. However, if I have a smartphone and my smartphone must be charged once in a while to be able to work, and without a smartphone, a very important part of my life is not functional anymore, okay? It's like another limb, more than another part of the brain. It's like the third hemisphere of the brain, okay? So if you want to charge your smartphone, if you go to the main power station and you connect it to the main power source, it will vaporize in no time, because your smartphone cannot connect to such an intensity of energy. So how do you still charge your phone? Okay, between your phone, your socket at home, and the power station, there are transformers. What do? Those transformers, they basically bring down the intensity of the electricity, and in every, like, there are junctions in which there are huge transformers, and they simply bring down the intensity, the voltage of the electricity, you know, for a city, for a neighborhood, for a street, for a house, all the way down till it gets to your socket. And even then, you need another transformer, and that's your charger, because your phone still cannot connect to the 240 or 110 in your socket. So it's all about transformers. What do these transformers do? They basically create an option to minimize the intensity of the original power till it fits the level of the end user. Could be a fridge, could be an air condition, can be different devices. All of them have different transformers in order to utilize what's in your socket. Okay, so this is in the physical dimension. It's very similar in the upper world. One of the reasons why it's easier to teach Kabbalah nowadays than in earlier generations, we have so many examples from the world of science that are basically an imitation of the spiritual world. Okay, so the Tree of Life is speaking about what is called the 10 Sefirot. What is Sefirot? For that, again, you need Hebrew. The word Sefirot, plural, or Sefirah, single, is having in Hebrew, every word has a root, which means, like, when you have a formula in algebra, you have in the formula X, Y, Z. Same thing in Hebrew, every word is basically a formula, and you have, if you want to understand the word, you need to look for the X, Y, Z. 3 letters that they basically are the source of the word, and then there's a conjugation that is the formula. So therefore, English and Hebrew are very, very different from each other. English is made of words. Hebrew is not made of words. Hebrew is made of formulas. And therefore, if you want to study Hebrew, you can't compare it to English. Why? they work on totally different dimensions and logic. So as we said, Hebrew is more like a formulation, and it's not the word, it is, the first thing is you look for what is called shoresh, or in English, source. What's the source of the word? So the source of the word Sefirot is Samech Pei Reish. You can see them enlightened in yellow, SPR. That's the root of the word. What is the meaning of that root? So I'm telling you, Sefirot, it's transformers, but how do we get it? First of all, the word sapphire, it's an English word, but it's from Hebrew. The Hebrew word is sapir. Okay, what do you see in the word sapir? And again, usually the roots are consonants. The vowels belong to the formula. That belongs to, if it's past tense, future tense, present tense, present continuous, passive, active, whatever, that's the purpose of the vowels. They change. The roots, the original letters of the root are consonants and they stay. Okay, so here in the word sapir, that's a Hebrew word for sapphire. Sapir means a shining stone. So S-P-R, which are Samech Pei Reish in Hebrew, their meaning is shining. But they have another meaning. Here in the word Sefar, border. Again, S-P-R, Samech Pei Reish, again. Now the vowels are different. Now it means a border. Okay, border is far. And there's also sphere. Sphere in English, you have again the SPR. And a sphere, you talk about a round sphere of influence. And you have different spheres. You have hemisphere, and you have the stratosphere. When you talk about the spheres of the atmosphere of the Earth, right? Which basically show boundaries of different density of air and many other things. So when you talk about, it's about boundaries, borders. In a sphere, it is round, okay? And you see in Kabbalah, you have like sphere within a sphere within a sphere. If you look on the bottom right, next to the word Live Kabbalah, you see that's one way to see the tree of life as a sphere within a sphere within a sphere, which means the endless light, when it comes to our reality, it goes through curtains, and each curtain is another sphere. By the time the light comes to our reality, which is the black dot in the middle, it is already very much covered and diminished, so it doesn't burn us up. Another word is to count, which is safar, counting, counted, okay? An accountant. All of that stuff is to count, Samech Pei Reish, again, to count. What do you do when you count? You limit. The moment it's 10, it's not 12, it's not 11. And you have a book, Sefer. What is a book? The book is basically somebody had an emotion, a feeling, wisdom, knowledge, enlightenment. He wrote it down. What does it mean he wrote it down? He limited his thoughts and emotions into letters. However, when somebody stranger, years later, the author could be dead already. In Hebrew, the author is sofer. Okay? The person who committed his thoughts, ideas, emotions into writing, now you read that book, and as you read the letters and the words, the same emotions or wisdom, enlightening, consciousness is shining in your mind, your heart, whatever. How? The letters, they shine. So when you read, and again in Hebrew you don't read, you are calling, a koreh. You're calling somebody else's thoughts and feelings and emotions when you read. So the letters Samech Peresh are coming from illumination of light, ideas, powers, consciousness within a limited boundary. So when we're talking about the tree of life, the tree of life is basically emanations, but within a confinement, which means not all the emanations are identical. And we live in a universe in which the light can shine in different intensities, not because the light is changing. What is changing is the Sefirot, the curtains, the transformers. So the change is not in the creator, the change is in the creation and the different levels of the created levels. So when we experience the creator this way or another, it's not because the creator is shining differently to different people, or not because it's shining different on us in the morning than in the evening. It is us that we change, and therefore we are the ones who change. Therefore we perceive the creator differently because of the changes within us. How does that happen? So that is the science of understanding the Sefirot, the tree of life, or the different emanations. So now we're going into the tree of life of the Sefirot. Before that, we need to understand two more concepts. One concept is the concept of close and far away. In the physical sense, you say, you know, two things are close or far away. What's the distance? You can measure it in meters, in feet, in whatever, in hand width. Humanity created many measurements, okay? But you create a distance. But there's also another way to describe this distance. For instance, you can meet two people. They live in the same household for decades. They even sleep in the same bed. And the bed could be very small, so they're really sleeping very close to each other. And also, let's say they work together. So they're very physically close to each other. But still, you can say it even in English. They're far away from each other like east and west. What do you mean by that? They're very close to each other. You're not talking about physical proximity, you're talking about something else. When we are talking about proximity on this mental, emotional, or even spiritual dimension, we're talking about similarity, which means when two spiritual entities are similar to each other, that means they are closer to each other. For instance, I give an example. Let's say you have a long flight. You're flying right now, let's say from Los Angeles to Tel Aviv. Or let's say you're flying from Tel Aviv to Melbourne, Australia. Okay, it's a very long flight. You're sitting next to another person, and you know, the flight could be dependent also about your relationship with that person. Sitting so long next to a person that is, you know, can kill the flight. So you sit next to a person and you start to have a conversation, and you realize there's so many things in common. You like the same things, you dislike the same things. You have certain ideas that you share, certain values that you share. The more you realize you're similar to each other, you feel closer to that person, which means closeness in the spiritual or mental level. It's not about physical proximity. It's about, although right now you're very physically close to each other, but after you become friends, you can still stay close to each other. You can call each other on the phone, FaceTime, whatever, and feel very close to each other. People have relationships that they feel very close to each other, while physically they live very far from each other. Every time they talk, it's like they continue the same conversation from last time. What creates that feeling of closeness? It's affinity, which means the more likelihood you have between you, the more values are that similarity, or you have more, let's say your frequency is more similar, you feel closeness. Closeness leads to communication. That means the closer you feel towards a person, that means that you can easily communicate with that person. They can understand, if you're really close to somebody, they understand you in no time. Well, the opposite, let's say you sit next to that person, and the more you talk to that person, you realize you have such opposite worldviews. You don't share any values. Whatever is great for you is horrible for him. Whatever you love, he hates. You feel far away from that person, like east and west. You can't understand him. He can't understand you. You don't feel any connection. You talk about A, he understands B. Okay? So, when we talk about affinity or closeness, we're not in the spiritual world, we're talking about resemblance. Or in Hebrew, shivui tzua. The more resemble two entities are to each other, the closer they are in the spiritual dimension, and they have better communication. When two people are almost identical in their worldviews, they feel so close to each other, you can feel even two are one. Oh, that's my twin brother. Oh, we're born in different locations, we belong to different nationalities, but that's my twin brother. Because you have a very similar perception of reality and values and missions, then you have a very strong connection. So though externally you don't look like each other, but you feel brotherhood that you don't feel with family members sometimes, okay? Then when you have such an identical connection, that's called love. And the Hebrew word for love, ahava, is a number. You know, in Hebrew, every letter is a number. So ahava, aleph is 1, hey is 5. We have 2 hays in the word ahava. And bet is 2. So you have 1, 5, 2, 5 gives you 13. The word echad, 1, in Hebrew is also 13. Aleph is 1, chet is 8, dalet is 4. 4 plus 8 plus 1, 13. The number 13 is powerful. Nature is 12. You have 12 particles. In physics, you look at the world, you have 12 zodiac signs. You want to have, how many directions? Basically, you can have south, east, west and north, but you have southeast. Okay, you have southeast, you have southwest, so you have 3 to the south. And then you have the same thing, you have 3 in each one, again, 12. It's all a matter of the number 12 is a mystical number for the physical reality, the physical dimension. Number 13 is one above. That's the outside the box. That's the one. Echad. Love, real, true spiritual love, is in spite of the physical differentiation. So when we are talking about closeness, we're talking about same structure, about affinity, about similarity. When we talk about farther, about distance in the spiritual world, we're talking about the opposite of similarity. Okay, differentiation. Okay, so now we learn that in the spiritual dimension, spiritual entities, the more similar they are to each other, they're closer to each other, and they have better connection to each other, more communication. The more different they are from each other, they're farther from each other in the spiritual world, and they have less communication. Okay, we have another part of the scale, which is up and down. When we say, again, the same way as a far and close, it has a spiritual dimension. Also, when we say about above and below, you can say above, a few meters in the air, a few kilometers above the face of the air, whatever, but you can also say that this person is a very highly awareness person. He is from a very high frequency. But that person is a very low frequency. Usually when you say about somebody who's in a very low, that's a low life. What we're talking about, selfishness, materialism, negativity, whatever that is basically connected to the desires, vessels. Okay, when you talk about higher levels, you're talking about altruism, giving, enlightenment, sharing, being above the body, connection, and needs. So when you say close and far, you're talking about similar and dissimilar. When you're talking about above and below, above is closer to the light, below is farther from the light. Okay? After we set up right now, like the X and Y dimensions, now we can set the graph. And here we come with the structure of the tree of life, which is also called the 10 Sefirot. The 10 Sefirot, according to what we just learned till now, they basically describe the structure of the universe above our senses. There are many dimensions, many levels. Why? Remember, everybody wants the light. Rule number 1. Can we connect directly to the light? Poof, we'll blow. And that's why the sages are saying, everybody wants to connect to the light. So the Talmud is saying, how could you connect to the light? It's a consuming fire. You have to connect to his midot. Midot means attributes, but it's also a synonym for Sefirot. Sefirah and Midah in Hebrew is basically synonyms. So it's a hint. Because Midah means measurements also. And when the moment you measure something and it's measured, it's not something else. So we look at the tree of life. So immediately we see like this. The Sefirot on the top, they are closer to the light. The lower the Sefirah is, it's farther away from the light. It's more and more materialistic. Okay? The change is not in the light. The change is in the frequency of the different levels of the vessel. All the Sefirot, they're not lights. They are different frequencies of vessels. However, the highest of them all, they are closer to the light. What does it mean? The less materialistic, less desire, less selfishness, less curtains, less transformation. It is more similar to the light, and more light is shining through them. Now you have to remember, if you're learning this the first time, it's like rewiring your brain. You're not supposed to understand it in the first time. It will take you a few times. You have to learn that again and again and again. By the way, your brain, after it's rewired, is not going to function like before. It's like downloading an app that really accelerates the functionality of your system. So, again, when we look at the 10 Sefirot, you can see also, remember when we studied about the 3 columns. Now you can see the columns. You see the right column is, of course, on the right. That's the Sefirot Chokhmah, Chesed, Netzach. Okay? On the left, you see the left column, Bina, Gevurah, Hod. The right column is giving, sharing, whatever, loving, kindness. Left column is about judgment, limitation, and so on. Then in the middle, you have the central column, Dat, Tiferet, Yesod. Okay? So you see 3 columns over here. I won't explain it, but as we learned before, if the light goes through something, same thing in electricity. You need a plus, you need a minus, and you need some resistor in the middle to create the synthesis and to create the flow. And that's the central column. Same thing over here. So now after we have the right column, the left column, central column, now we divide it into the upper 3. The upper 3 Sefirot are Keter, Chokhmah, and Bina. Keter, Chokhmah, and Bina, these are the upper 3 Sefirot. And what does it mean? They are the closest to the light because they are on the top. What does it mean? It means there is less curtains, less thickness, darkness, or let's say the curtains are thinner over there on one hand. On the other hand, the light is much more dominant in the upper 3. So the upper 3 is like the Godhead. For us, remember, this is relativity. If you are in, let's say, Tiferet, you know what? Let's stay in the upper 3. If you are in Chokhmah, Keter for you is the light, and Chesed for you is a vessel. But if you're in Chesed, Chokhmah is the light for you. You get the whole relativity theory on standing 1 foot. It's all relative to where you are at. There's no absolute truth. The way we experience life, it's relative to where we position ourselves on the tree of life. So, and who does that depend on? The frequency we generate, as we're going to see today, in our mind, in our hearts. How? We'll see later. So first of all, when you want to say Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, or the upper 3, Gal, Gimel Rishonot, initials Gal, you say connecting to very high level intensified light. It's like somebody connected to the upper 3, he put his finger in the socket of the power station. So the upper 3 are very, very close to the light, which means the intensity of the light relatively to us human beings is almost unbearable. Not almost, it is invariable. Keter, Chokhmah, Bina. Okay, now you can see also that Bina and Chokhmah, the central column of Bina and Chokhmah is another Sefirah that is called Da'at. Da'at is basically when Bina and Chokhmah come together to influence to the lower Sefirot, it's called Da'at. Sometimes you count Da'at as part of the 10 Sefirot. It's not the time to explain it. Sometimes not. In the regular definition of 10 Sefirot, you don't count Da'at as part of them. The classic definition. Some definitions you count Keter out, and then Da'at becomes part of it. Then you have 10 Sefirot, including Da'at. Why? It's not the time right now. It's a whole study of years of life. Let's first learn the basic rules. Okay, now let's go to each Sefirah particularly. Okay? Keter. Keter belongs, as we said, to the upper three. It's the highest Sefirah. When you're talking about the highest Sefirah, it means it's the closest to the light, which means it's like almost all light. The vessel is almost negligible in that level. There is a vessel. And because it's the first of them, when you want to understand the meaning of the word Keter, Keter means a crown in Hebrew. But again, English is not, you cannot use the word crown, you have to use the word Keter, because Keter is being used in Hebrew because in a way that it's a crown, but also to surround. And to surround means to be the cause. And to be the cause means to have control. Keter is the seed of all the other Sefirot. It includes all of the Sefirot. It includes also the purpose of the whole creation, because it's the first emanation from the endless. This is the bridge between the creation and the creator. So, like the seed includes all parts of the tree. Even a sequoia tree that is bigger than a regular building, heavier, okay, and can stand there for thousands of years. All of it started, even the sequoia tree, the biggest of them all, started from a small, tiny seed. But inside that seed, the whole tree was included already. You know, nothing can grow out of a seed that is not included. You cannot plant an apple tree and a guava tree will come out of it. It's impossible. Whatever is in the seed, that will sprout and come as a tree. So the Keter is a seed for all of reality, because it's a first expansion from the endless. That's why it's called the cause. It's the cause of sharing and bliss with all his creatures. Because it is also, Keter means also to surround. The power of the Keter surrounds every aspect of creation. And what is the Keter about? Giving. And therefore, whatever happens to us is part of an evolutionary process that finally will lead each one of us to a complete fulfillment. Why? You can't run away from the Keter, because Keter means also to surround and to control. The Keter controls every aspect of reality. Even the worst aspects of reality, they are under the rulership of Keter, which means finally, even as terrible the situation is, that will lead finally to illumination. That's Keter. Under Keter, you have, although in the 2D creation that we see in front of us, it doesn't look like Chokhmah is above Bina, but it is above. Remember that we're talking about 10-dimensional structure, and you have somehow to formulate in a 2-dimensional formula. Okay, so the Sephirah of Chokhmah, it's also called Abba, Father, because it's just under Keter. It's number 2 after Keter. It is unlimited energy. It is unlimited wisdom. Chokhmah in Hebrew means wisdom, means also sight. As it says, the wise one can see the future, the ability to see the big picture. The wise man, it means that in Chokhmah, everything is complete. All wisdom is there. All power is there. When you want to say that somebody connected to the upper 3, you can also say he connected to the light of wisdom, or the Chokhmah. That could basically fry you till you evaporate. It's the highest intensity. Keter is the seed. Chokhmah is already the manifestation of all of that light and wisdom and energy. Unlimited. So it's also enlightenment, and is also the right column, so it's analytic. Okay? Father. Okay? That's Chokhmah. One more thing about Chokhmah, about this is everything is already there in Chokhmah. For instance, Chokhmah, a wise man is passive. Why is passive? He doesn't have to invest any effort to see the big picture. Like the Kabbalah is bringing an example, a wise doctor, physician, he sees 1 or 2 symptoms, he already sees the whole pathway of the disease. He already can tell what were the previous stages before the patient came to the physician, and he can already prophesize, but it's not a prophecy. He already sees one part of the picture, he sees the whole picture. What are going to be the next stages? And how can you give medications or treatment that will change the course of the disease? That's a wise physician. A smart physician, he accumulates all the details, but he will never see the big picture till it's becoming Chokhmah. Okay, so that's why it says a wise person won't fall into a trouble that a smart person can get out of. He knows it's a trouble, he will never fall into it. There's no evolutionary process in wisdom. It's all there. It's a given. While Binah, it's the opposite. Binah is the left column. This is Ima, mother. It's the intuitive. For us, because Binah is what we see as the face of the Creator, it's a storage of life. And why it's called Ima, mother? Who feeds you? The mother feeds, usually not the father. So it's a storage of life. So connecting to Binah is about connecting to life. It's connecting to all aspects of the flow of what makes you alive. Sustenance, family, children, it's all there. So again, relativity. When I look upwards to the upper 3, who do I see? I see Binah. Binah, although you can't see it in the picture, is under Chokhmah. So I can't see Chokhmah, I cannot see Keter, I can see only Binah. So Binah, for me, is the bottom of the upper 3. So it's the source of life. This is that dimension of all living creatures nourished from. Binah means also understanding. Okay? In a way. Why? There's more effort in Binah. It's not passive, complete as in Chokhmah. Here, we went one more step away from the original light. Okay, Now we're coming to Dat. Dat is about knowing, connecting. As we said, it's not a real sphera. It's a connection between Chokhmah and Binah, which means when Chokhmah and Binah manifest in our reality, they have to manifest together. And that's synthesis is called Da'at. In Hebrew, Da'at means knowledge. And Adam knew Eve and she got pregnant. What does it mean? They were talking to each other? No, they were mating, which means they had a union. That union is Da'at. So when we talk about awareness, connection, union, that's that. That's why it's a synthetic. It synthesizes the analytic and the intuitive and creates an idea that can manifest. If you can speak about it, you can act upon it. Okay, now we're coming to the lower 7. The lower 7, it's also called Bina. It's also called Ze'er Anpin and Malchut. Ze'er Anpin is 6, Malchut is the 7th. And now, if you look at Ze'er Anpin is divided into 2 triangles. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet is called the upper triangle. Netzach, Hod, Yesod is the lower triangle. Okay? 2 triangles, that's the Star of David. So the Star of David is not a religious symbol. It's an equation. Yeah, but they don't look the same. Remember, E equal MC squared. It's an equation. It doesn't look like energy and matter. It's just a symbol that gives you an idea. Same thing what we call the Star of David or the David shield, okay, as it's in Hebrew. The moment you have the 2 triangles, one upon another, acting as one, they have a very precise role. Ze'er Anpin, it's an Aramaic word, but in day-to-day Hebrew, when you want to say that something is minimized, you say Ze'er Anpin. Like this child is his father spitting him, but he's small. Ze'er Anpin. When you want to say that this is like, you took a big idea and you brought it in a very small scale, Ze'er Anpin. So when you take the infinite light in the upper 3, it's almost infinite, relatively to us it's infinite, and you minimize it, filter it, till we can connect to it without being vaporized, that's basically the cosmic filter. It minimizes, it takes that huge intense light and makes it small enough so we can tap into it. So Ze'er Anpin is a big filter. It's a protective shield. When you have 2 triangles working together, the upper 3, Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferet, working together with Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Like Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet is more in the upper consciousness, intention, meditation level. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, it's called the upper 3. The lower 3 is already manifestation into actions. Netzach, Hod, Yesod. So when these 2, the spiritual awareness and the physical action, they are put together to act together, you have a spiritual behavior. You have a spiritual manifestation. That's what the Star of David symbolizes. Okay, now let's go to every Sphira individually. Okay, Chesed. Chesed is the upper triangle, right column. It means, Chesed means loving kindness and sharing. All of them in one word, Chesed. It is about love and kindness and giving. And also every Sephirah of the lower 7 has a chariot. The word chariot in English is coming from the word charet in French, which means to compose, or in Hebrew, merkava. Merkava is again a composition, like a chariot. What's a chariot over here? We have a spiritual awareness that has a human being that manifests that awareness in a physical sense. Let's say Abraham. You read Genesis about Abraham, and he was a man of sharing, hospitality, having his home open to all four directions. So if somebody hungry and tired comes from far away, he doesn't have to go around. He can enter from each direction. Everyone, no matter what background they had, they were invited in. They were supplied with water to wash, food to eat, drink, and take with them. Unconditional giving. That's Abram the patriarch. And this is chesed. This is the epitome of chesed. That state of mind of unconditional giving. Giving, sharing, charitable, whatever, that's chesed. Gevurah is judgment and also receiving. It's the left column of the upper triangle. Gevurah in Hebrew means strength, vigor, judgment, and also overcoming. The ability to overcome. To overcome, which means creating boundaries to oneself and to others. The chariot over here is Isaac, the patriarch. Isaac is the one that dig wells, is the one that is planting and get 100 times fold. You can see over the intensity of getting as much as more. But also Isaac is the one that Abraham binds. You know the binding of Isaac? It's not the test of Abraham, it's the binding of Isaac. Why? When Abraham giving is binding Isaac receiving, what do we get? We get the kosher, right and left. When it's just giving and giving and giving, you finally become depleted and hateful and resentful and so on. When you're only receiving, you get burnt. You stay far away from the light of the Creator because selfishness doesn't go together with unconditional love of the Creator. So when Isaac is being bound by Abraham and binding, like a binding agreement, is also conditioned. You create a central column. Abraham Chesed becomes active. He overcomes the left column, judgment, receiving of Isaac, and he binds it. They create at that moment, that it says they work 3 days together. Why 3? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right, left, and center. Chesed, Gvurah, Tiferet. So the binding of Isaac is not about the test of Abraham, the Zohar says. It's about the creation of that force that later on Jacob is going to be a chariot to. The force that is right and left, giving and receiving, bound as one. When they're bound as one, you can have infinity. Why? How can you connect to the infinite? If you just give, you become depleted. If you just receive, you get the light of wisdom and get burnt. But when you receive in the condition of giving, Abraham binding Isaac, you're endless. Whatever you receive, it's not for you, it's for others. Meanwhile, it sustains you, but it's still giving it. You're not the last station, you're not the final position. It's always you became from a desire, ratzon, to a pipe, tzino, same letters in Hebrew. A desire is limited, a pipe is unlimited. Pipe, desire to receive for the sake of sharing, that central column, it has a desire to receive, judgment, gevurah. It has in order to share, that's chesed. But when they are bound to with each other, it becomes tiferet, central column, balance, synthesis, symmetry, central column of the upper triangle. It's tiferet, beauty, completion. What is beauty? Balance. And the chariot is Jacob the patriarch, balance. Now, we're coming down to the bottom triangle. It's the right column of the lower triangle. Sephira is Netzach. It's also sharing. It's in the right column. It's Netzach means eternity and victory. When the sharing is crystallized and it becomes eternity, that's the only real true victory. Okay, that's Netzach. And then you have Hod, judgment and receiving, that's the left column. Left column of the lower triangle. The Sephira is Hod, glory. Like again, Netzach is like Chesed, but in a lower level. Hod is Gevurah, but in a lower level. The chariot is Aaron. Aaron was a Levite in the beginning. When we get to know Aaron, it says that Moses says, I cannot speak, I don't know how to speak. So God says, okay, I'll send Aaron, your brother, the Levite. Levite is the left column. Kohen is the right column. Israelite is center column. Okay, I'm sending you Aaron the Levite. Aaron later on became a high priest, which is Chesed. But in this stage, he is the chariot for Hod. And then the sixth, Sephira in Zeranpin, which is also the funnel that brings in all the Sephirot of the top. Yesod is the Sephira that collects everything and funnels everything together. It's the center column of the lower triangle. Yesod is also foundation. And that's Joseph the righteous, because in Hebrew, Yesod is Yosef. Yosef means to accumulate. Sefirat Yesod accumulates all the energy from the upper Sefirot to deliver it to the end user, Malchut. And the customer is the king. Malchut means kingdom. Because who rules, who controls the flow? We do. We are in Malchut. We are the vessel, we are the desire, we are the manifestation. Which means we'll never receive more or less than how much we want to receive. So when we receive in a negative way, selfish way, we disconnect from Yesod because we don't have any affinity with Yesod. Then we stay in the dark. Then we feel that God is angry about us. When we are busy with putting limitation on our desires, giving and sharing to others, when we are really focused on spiritual growth, then the light flows. We connect to Yesod through affinity, and then the light from all the Sefirot is filling us up. King David, the great warrior, because being in Malchut, that means you have to fight. You are in control, but you have to fight to achieve better levels. Okay, how does it work according to what we learned till now? So, let's see what happens when we have a short circuit, when we behave in a selfish manner. This is the upper three, Keter Chochmah Binah. It's a source of light. For us, it's like stronger than the sun. Then you have Zeranpin, the two triangles, they are the filter. They have Malchut, which is us. We want to receive. Now, when we want to receive, but we don't want to, we want to be spiritual. We want it here, we want it now, unconditional. We care about nobody. I want it here and now, and I care about nothing. The light is endless, is infinite. The light will come in. And when it comes in, it will come from the upper three, source of light. What happens with light when light of such magnitude, intensity, comes into the vessel, Malchut, which is the lowest of them all? It's high and by. It's explosion. You had a lot of light, a lot of power, and then it won't last till the morning after. And then you have the depletion and the sorrow of the failure. That's when we connect to the upper three through any kind of addiction or addicting patterns of behavior. I want it now. I don't care about its consequences. High and by. But when we are applying the secret of overcoming, the power of overcoming a body consciousness, what happens? So here's the upper three. Here's the Anpin, the filter. Here's Malchut. Phase one, the desire appears. I want it now. Phase two, overcome the reaction, be in control. What do we do to connect to the Anpin? We try to create an affinity. How? To behave in such a frequency as the Anpin. What's the frequency of the Anpin? Overcome the reaction, caring, sharing, creating. When you do that, you connect. You raise Malchut to the Anpin. And then, next stage, when you raise Malchut to the Anpin, you continue to rise till you connect to Malchut. And when you connect all Sefirot together, by your own, overpowering your immediate desire for instant relief. No. The only way I can receive to that enlightenment is when I give of myself. So there is an ascension, because now, when I'm giving of myself, I am raising myself to a higher frequency. Malchut rises up to the Anpin rises up to the upper three. There's a union and fulfillment among the Sefirot. And there is a real, truthful fulfillment, because that's a lasting fulfillment. Because it was not here and now, it was about, first of all, how do I overcome the immediate urge? Because how do I rise to the upper three? I need to minimize my desires and to intensify my sharing, my caring. So when I connect to Malchut in such a way, I connect to enlightenment. The upper three Sefirot are right now shining down the Anpin. It fills me up, charges me completely without burning me up. Okay. So how does that manifest? As another way, we'll expand it about it later also. One of the most powerful meditation is a name of God, which is also called the Tetragrammaton. It's the most intense. You cannot pronounce the name. By the way, nobody knows how to pronounce it. Whoever says they know, they don't know. And you're not supposed even to try to pronounce it, not even to pronounce the names of the letters. It's called the Tetragrammaton, Shem Amforash, and it's so powerful. He says the only time that was pronounced, it was when the high priest went on Yom Kippur, one day a year, into the Holy of Holies. And over there he prayed, and he didn't even say the word. It came out of his mouth. It was channeling. And then he says that it was so powerful, it could cleanse the whole world. But if his mind was not, and heart were not pure enough, it would have killed him. So when the high priest went into the Holy of Holies in Jerusalem in the temple, he was tied with a golden rope, because if he said the prayer and he mentioned the Tetragrammaton, came out of his mouth, but he was not totally 100% pure, he would die on the spot. Then they had to pull his corpse outside the Holy of Holies with the string, with the rope. If it was successful, the whole Jerusalem celebrated when he came out. It is an omen that the next year is going to be great. Okay, how is it that one name is so powerful? So the Tetragrammaton is basically built according to the tree of life. It is the whole tree of life. So the upper three, Keter, Chochmah, and Binah, are in the Yud and the Hey. The Yud is Chochmah, Hey is Binah, that's the upper three. Where's Keter? Keter is the thorn, it's called the thorn of the Yud. It's part of the Yud, it doesn't have a letter of its own. Remember, Keter, we said, is so lofty, it doesn't have a Keter of its own. Then, Sefirat Ze'anpin, the filter with the 6 Sefirot, is the letter Vav. The letter Vav has a numerical value of 6, and it looks even like a pipe that connects the upper world and the lower world. And then we come back to Malchut, again, the letter Hey, which is, if Binah is the vessel of the upper three, Malchut is a vessel of the lower 7. So now that's a name. We do not pronounce it completely. We pronounce Yud, and when we want to say Hey, we say K, although we mean a Hey. Yud, K, Vav, K. Because by just even saying the names of the letters is too powerful for us, human beings. Okay, so the Yud, K, Vav, K is basically the whole tree of life in 4 letters. That's why it's so powerful. That's why you cannot mention it to pronounce it, because it belongs to the upper realm. So what name we do pronounce, the name we pronounce every time the name of the Tetragrammaton, the Yud, K, Vav, K appears in the Torah, in the prayer book, we pronounce another name, Adonai. What's the difference? This is the name we can pronounce because that's a name that connects to Malchut. So when we say, we pronounce the name of God in a blessing, reading the Torah, or anything, we have to concentrate on the Yud, K, Vav, K, and bring it down together with the Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. The numerical value of these two, Yud, K, Vav, K, is 26. Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud is 65. Together it is 91, which is also Amen. So every time we say Amen, or every time we say the name of God, we have to meditate on both names. That's why in a Ashkenazi prayer book, the name of God is 2 times Yud. They wanted to save money. So they wrote the first Yud and the last Yud. The first letter and the last letter, Yud, Yud, everybody will know. Most people don't remember. Why 2 Yuds are the name of God? It's both names combined together. In a Sephardic prayer books, they said, no, people will forget. You write the whole thing. So they write Yud, K, Vav, K. They write inside the last say Aleph, Dalet, Yud, and then they intertwine the 2 names together. So it's 16 letters every time. More money, especially when your print is like the old print till 100 years ago. You save a lot of money if you write 2 Yuds. No, the Sephardic rabbis insisted we have to write all of them, or people will forget. So we can see over here the tree of life. And every time when we say the name of God, we connect in our minds, according to the Zohar, the Yud, K, Vav, K, the heavens, and the earth, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, judgment, negativity, vessel, desires. That's basically the amazing secret, and there's a great meditation doing that. Okay? And now that will also explain to us, and then I'll give you another example. When you set the Seder plate, under the plate, if the Ashkenazi on the top of it, there are 3 matzot. What are the matzot? Chochmah, Binah, Dat. On the plate itself, you have 7 different aspects. To the right, on the top right, you have the Zohar. Chesed, right column of the top, upper triangle. On the left, you have egg. The egg is Gevurah. In the middle, between the two, you have the Mahor, Tiferet, center column. Then the lower triangle is the Charoset, which is Nesach, Karpas, which is Hod, Chazeret is Yesod, and the plate is Malchut. So when we set the Seder plate, it's basically establishing the whole tree of life on our table. And then we start reading the Haggadah. We basically activate each Sefirah in its time. So there are many ways to understand it. As I said, it's almost impossible to get it in the first time. You should repeat this class again and again, and till it settles down and it becomes part of our thinking. And then the way light flows in our brains, in our hearts, in our souls is totally different. Thank you so much.